What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazique, aka Unique Mazique. I'm the hardest working man in sports and gaming, and I got another Madden 21 video for you. This one is about the Gridiron Notes that were released on Tuesday. They were addressing the playbook and AI improvements. As I mentioned in my last video, I kind of think they're trying to slide this in as like it's a boost to franchise mode. That's not really how it is, and that's not the way I see it. I mean, not direct. Right? So this is the latest one to come out before the August 28th release of the game. I think it's the early release is like August 25th. And then the worldwide release is on the 28th. This one, like I said, is about playbooks and AI. It's really long. The notes themselves are really long. I'm kind of like breaking it into a few categories. The basic focus areas were on live playbooks. Basically, they're calling it Playbooks 2.0. They're going to update the playbooks through the season based on what teams run. They're trying to improve run defense by having the defense's formation shift when offenses send players in motion and flip plays and that sort of thing, because you basically, for years, you've basically been able to send a bunch of people in motion, flip formations, and sometimes the defense wouldn't respond by, getting the right alignment. So it kind of puts you at a great disadvantage once the ball is snapped, and you can kind of get mismatches and overload on either side of the line of scrimmage. There's also some stuff done with pass coverage, specifically in zones, but one major part they're talking about is at the line of scrimmage with releases and press coverage. So I do agree with this. It was a little too easy for people to get open at the line of scrimmage. So now that little mini game between your press coverage rating and your release rating should matter more accordingly, or at least that's the design. And one of the ones that I actually am the most interested in is AI, which is from a clock management, play calling, and adjustment standpoint. For years, the CPU does like the dumbest things in the world at the end of halves, at the end of games, and you can get some really cheap wins that way because the CPU acts like they don't understand how Madden clocks work, even though it is Madden. So that's one of the things, right? So let's go in a little bit deeper into the notes. And this is, of course, an article I wrote up on Forbes. I just kind of wanted to go through it on the YouTube channel with you. They're already inputting some plays for the New England Patriots offense in anticipation of Cam Newton taking over as a starting quarterback, which I think is cool. So I think that means you should have some RPOs, which obviously, you would never be able to run an RPO with Tom Brady before. And I think the RPOs would stay in there either way. And I'm talking about in real life, even if Jarrett Stidham actually was the quarterback instead of Cam Newton, because Stidham is a lot more mobile than people think. So that kind of look can work for either quarterback. So that's why I think it's definitely something that's going to be part of what the Patriots do next year. The offensive playbooks have been updated to reflect the shifting philosophies with coordinator changes across the league. So they give an example of like the Dallas Cowboys and how they fired the head coach, but they kept the offensive coordinator, so their playbook's going to stay the same. But you have other teams like Carolina who changed everything, so everything's going to change, so the playbook's going to change too. There's a focus with the defensive playbooks, making sure that formations teams run the most are out there. So that's, if you look at a team like the Patriots who run all these exotic looks on defense, that team specifically, you're going to want to see how much how much the formations that are available there are there for you to be able to call. And then also what I want to see is if you're playing against the Patriots and the CPU is controlling them, will they tend to run more formations that are more in alignment with what they run most times in real life? So that's something I want to see. Like I talked about, the pass coverage, the press and release ratings, that little mini war will be important. Now, this is one part that was in the Gridiron Notes that I didn't see in the beta. Maybe this is something that they're changing in the beta, or they changed because of the beta. They said that they've sped up handoffs, but somehow I've kind of felt like they were slower in the beta, and I didn't really like that. So they said that they're doing it to encourage users to utilize some plays that pretty much were unusable before because the play just developed too slow, especially against a human-controlled opponent. So we'll see what happens in the retail version, but I did not get a feel of that in the beta. As far as screen passes, halfbacks are supposed to get a cleaner release now on screen passes. I did notice that in the beta. I thought that my backs didn't get caught up on, offensive linemen as they were trying to get into free space to free themselves up for the screen pass. So that I did notice. So I'd like that. The AI clock management has supposedly been tuned. This is especially important in the single player experience and especially in franchise mode. So like I said, you can get some really cheap wins that way. And this is the kind of stuff, like, they're throwing in mentions of the franchise mode in the Gridiron Notes. Like, this is not a franchise mode thing. This is just an overall gameplay thing that will indirectly impact franchise mode. So, okay. Also, AI quarterbacks are supposed to be smarter, which means that they'll have more realistic tendencies. They'll look to, key receivers in critical situations more often. They are supposed to run with some level of awareness, meaning they'll slide more, try to get out of bounds to protect themselves on the ball. So I like all that. And like I said, all of that sounds great. But I will say this. I have heard about similar fixes like this with Madden in the past, and not all of them have worked. This is not the first time I've heard that they were doing something to improve clock management, and I still saw people doing absolutely egregious harebrained things at the end of halves and games. You're looking like, why would you run out of? I don't understand. So that happened a lot. So hopefully that's not what we see in Madden 21. And I just, like I said, which, as far as if you're trying to fix franchise mode, yes, all of this kind of auxiliary stuff, fringe stuff that you're doing that indirectly affects franchise mode, absolutely is cool. It helps the game for sure. But in order to actually do something that people are going to feel with franchise mode, you got to go in and do something that only really affects or primarily affects that mode, which is, we haven't heard about that or anything like that as of yet. The next piece of information that EA is going to offer us is going to take 2 weeks, and it's supposed to be feedback from the closed beta. At least that's when the next Gridiron Notes are coming, unless they're going to do some special one-off talk about franchise mode. I don't know, but July 28th is when they will have another Gridiron Notes that is based on the feedback from the beta. So we'll see what happens in regards to that. But that's all I got for you on this particular video. As usual, I appreciate you watching. Don't forget to also like the video and subscribe. God bless.